Waves of ambitious sailors followed Columbus, searching both North and South America for extractable wealth. Okay, another breakthrough occurred between 1519 and 1522 when Ferdinand Magellan's Spanish ships circumnavigated the globe. Magellan had alienated members of the Portuguese court, and like Columbus, he found no backing for his proposed trip there. Also, like Columbus, he went to Spain to ask them to fund his voyage. If you were going to be somewhere between 1519 and 1522, on one of Magellan's ships was not necessarily the best place. The conditions and Magellan's no-nonsense discipline caused mutinies and other problems which Magellan handled harshly, executing or marooning mutineering captains in his fleet. But after finding the straits at the tip of South America, the fleet set sail across the Pacific, eventually returning to Spain despite Magellan's death at the hands of local leaders in the Philippines in 1521. Of the 237 original voyagers and 5 ships, only 18 men and 1 ship returned to Spain in 1522. But the voyage arranged and headed by Magellan was a revelation. It opened the world up to global transportation, exchange, settlement, and yes, also global slavery and warfare and pandemics and conquest. The Spanish could now stock their New World settlements with Chinese and Indian luxuries by crossing the Pacific, and fill their coffers from profits in New World goods by crossing the Atlantic. In 1519, Spanish invader Hernán Cortés came into contact with indigenous people in present-day Mexico, landing on its Mayan eastern coast with several hundred soldiers and making his way inland, starting battles and forging alliances. He eventually reached the center of the Aztec Empire at Tenochtitlan, where the Spaniards were astonished at the wealth of this civilization, and Cortés bowed before its king Montezuma II, who led a vast empire that stretched to present-day Honduras and Nicaragua. The capital had tens of thousands of inhabitants, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Markets overflowed with luscious produce and crafts, and the city had a sophistication that, like the wealth itself, was foreign to Europeans, even if the Aztec practice of human sacrifice was also foreign. A similar awe filled Francisco Pizarro when he saw the textiles and silver and gold objects crafted by the Incas, who'd also created thousands of miles of roads and efficient institutions to hold their vast empire together along the west coast of present-day South America. Both Pizarro and Cortés relied on help from rival indigenous communities to help them take control from the Incas and Aztecs. The conquerors also married the princesses and other noble women they had raped as a ritual of domination, and marriage gave them access to insider information, local networks, and the wealth that such women possessed, including wealth in enslaved peoples. So Iberians were incentivized to set sail by their poverty and by their Catholic faith, but they were disadvantaged by a comparative lack of manufacturing skills when it came to trade. What they did have, at least at first, was sailing prowess and weaponry on their side. Iberian caravels were nimble and they could be loaded with cannons. The Portuguese borrowed the use of triangular sails from the Arabs, often combining them with square-rigged ones to make